Martin Faranan McDonagh is a British-Irish playwright and filmmaker who has written 9 plays, 4 feature-length films, and 1 short film. He's the younger brother of John Michael McDonagh, who has also notably written and directed 2 films of a similar style, The Guard and Calvary. Martin has won numerous awards, including the Academy Award for Best Live-Action Short Film in 2006 for Six Shooter, as well as being nominated 6 other times.
Hang on, he's never won Best Picture. In Bruges wasn't even nominated for Best Picture. What? Seven Psychopaths wasn't nominated for anything. Let's look at these nominations. What? I thought 3 Billboards won Best Picture. Oh, that was the British Film Awards. What won Best Picture in 2018? The Shape of Water. What the fuck?
He is the absolute king of black comedy. His work is mostly tragic and emotional, but downright hilarious. His characters are well written, and his films are set in beautiful and interesting places. In my mind, there is no one out there making movies like his, of such a high quality, and as of yet, in the 15 years since his feature film debut, he has not put out a single film which was short of brilliant. Spoiler warning throughout, though I will do my best to not really spoil anything. In Bruges is what would happen if Seamus Finnegan tried to seduce Fleur Delacour whilst he and Mad Eye Moody were on the run from Voldemort in the best preserved medieval city in Belgium. With guns. No, but in truth, it's a story about 2 hitmen hiding out in Bruges because something went wrong on one of their jobs and their angry boss told them,
"Get the fuck out of London, you dumb fucks. Get to Bruges."
As well as all the weird people they meet there, and Colin Farrell's character Ray trying to deal with the guilt of what he's done. I also really enjoy the way that Brendan Gleeson's character Ken assumes kind of the role of the parent who enjoys the sightseeing and the dreamy fairy tale atmosphere of Bruges, whilst Ray behaves like his bored, spoilt child. And Ken seems to carry that parental role through to the end of the movie, sacrificing far more for Ray than he seemingly deserves. The scenery of this film is remarkable, and it was the very scenery of Bruges which inspired Martin to write the story, and part of the appeal of this film itself is the setting. I cannot think of a more beautiful place to set a movie. And when you couple that scenery with a frankly masterful score written by Carter Burwell, that really completes the ensemble. The music in this movie is so very atmospheric and it really sticks with you. In Bruges is a perfect example of Martin's genius gallows humour, balancing comedy and tragedy in such a way that the balance tips in the favour of comedy like
A big fat fucking retarded fucking black girl on a seesaw. Opposite. A dwarf.
It is frankly astounding that it was his feature film debut, as it still stands up compared to even his most recent work. You can even begin to see Martin lean towards the meta, which will start to come out fully in his next film.
Why don't you both put your guns down? Go home.
Don't be stupid. This is the shootout.
The scenery, music, story, direction and performances are all excellent, and Ralph Fiennes in particular is brilliant.
What?
It's an inanimate fucking object.
You're an inanimate fucking object!
Come on, work. 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 Work, you inanimate fucking object! I'm sorry that I called you an inanimate object. But you are. You're a DVD. You are an inanimate object. For his next feature, Martin leans fully into the meta that he referenced in Bruges. On paper, Seven Psychopaths is about a writer living in Hollywood trying to write a movie called Seven Psychopaths, while avoiding making the movie too Hollywood. Meanwhile, his crazed dog-borrowing friend tries to help him but ends up just causing mayhem around him. Looking deeper though, my interpretation at least, is that Sam Rockwell's character Billy is a manifestation of the Hollywood movie industry itself. And the movie is actually about Martin's struggles as a writer to create a film that doesn't conform to the usual Hollywood formula, while trying not to succumb to the pressure.
This movie is my way.
Now, Martin McDonagh has stated in interviews that Colin Farrell's character Marty isn't based on himself. But he, the writer and director Martin Faranan McDonagh, straight up named the character Martin Faranan and expects us to believe it's not based on him.
Marty, do everything to keep his mind on track about the 7 psychopaths. He's the best writer of his generation.
Did he just fucking call himself the best writer of his generation?
This movie is probably closer to just a comedy than a black comedy, but there's still some real tragedy in there, and Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson are downright hilarious in it, and Christopher Walken is just fucking amazing. I mean, saying Christopher Walken is amazing seems like stating the obvious, but he is even amazing for Christopher Walken in this movie. A nice little detail is all the killers that Zachariah and Maggie go after are actually based on real unsolved serial killer cases, which makes the story itself seem more convincing. I also love the irony of Martin McDonagh's most Hollywood movie being about Hollywood and set in Hollywood, and also the self-deprecation of a British-Irish writer writing this.
I don't have a drinking problem, I just like drinking.
Of course you do. Marty, you're a writer. 2, you're from Ireland. It's part of your heritage. You're fucked. Spanish have got bullfighting, the French got cheese, and the Irish have got alcoholism.
3 Billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri is about a woman dealing with the aftermath of her daughter being brutally murdered, while the killer goes uncaught, and taking action to try and keep the story in the public eye. She rents 3 billboards calling out the police chief, who happens to be dying, asking why no arrests have been made, which the town, police, and her ex-husband all oppose. The story of this film is so complex and intricate that I can't really go into it further without straight up just listing everything that happens. The characters all have such depth to them, so flawed, yet with so many good characteristics to contend with those flaws. The film is beautifully shot, written, and acted. Sam Rockwell in particular is fucking brilliant in this film. And of course, the movie after Martin McDonagh had one of the characters say about himself,
"Your women characters are awful."
He has Frances McDormand play one of his strongest, most independent characters to date. The music is spectacular. Again, Carter Burwell coming through with another amazing score. I love the scene where Mildred owns the priest, and the letter from Chief Willoughby to his wife is one of the most emotion-provoking moments I have ever seen in any movie ever. I love this movie, and it feels like Martin's most mature work to date, but the thing is, it's so emotional, and no one character seems to catch a break in this film at all, that I find this film honestly quite hard to sit all the way through to the end, because it is so exhaustingly depressing. Still a masterpiece though. The Banshees of Inisherin is about 2 friends, one of whom, Colm's sonny Larry Doherty, abruptly ends their friendship, and we follow the other, Padraig Suliban, as he struggles to come to terms with this. Straight after 3 Billboards, we get a film which is no less emotional, but is so in such a slower, less hard-hitting way. And the comedy in this movie, similarly, is so dark, subtle, and gentle, which makes the film feel all the more Irish compared to the American Billboards.
If it's the same fucking bread van, I'll kill them.
And how much more Irish can you get than this landscape? You know what? I take back what I said about Bruges. This is the most beautiful place to set a movie. This film was shot on the Aran Islands, which is where Father Ted was shot, and coincidentally or otherwise, it features both Pat Short, who played Tom in Father Ted, and John Kenny, who played Michael Cochise, the cinema owner, in one episode, and Fred Rickwood, the Eurovision presenter, in another. I love the traditional Irish music in this movie. Look at this guy just fucking rocking that bow run. The first time I watched this film, I really felt for Padraig and empathised with him. But when I rewatched it, I really started to empathise with Colm and consider that maybe this wasn't as sudden as the movie suggests.
You liked me yesterday.
Oh, did I? Yeah.
That is up until a certain point in the movie when it becomes somewhat difficult to empathise with him. Something else I'd just like to praise is that when I first watched this movie, I found myself wondering when it might be set, and almost like magic, just as I was wondering that, this shot with the calendar happened. Now, I don't know if I'm reading deeper into something than I should, but I can't help feeling like Martin McDonagh just knew that around this point in the movie people would start to wonder, so he put this shot in. I know there are other reasons, such as the whole April Fool's implication, but the year is very prevalent on the calendar, so maybe he was thinking people might be wondering that at this point what year it was set, and I wondered that. So maybe it's just that me and him are actually like really alike. Maybe I'm actually the king of black comedy after all. No? Okay. Well, anyway, I really like the scene where Padraig gives us life advice to not watch Martin McDonagh movies if you don't want to feel sad.
Well, you should read a not sad one, Siobhan, else you might get sad.
And both the church confessional scenes.
Well, you can get out of my confessional right now, so you can. And I'm not forgiving you any of these things until the next time, so I'm not.
Well, I better not be dying in the meantime then, eh, Father? I'll be pure fucked.
Maybe I just like it when people make fun of the church. Okay, so maybe this should have come first in the list as it was his first film chronologically, but I put it last because it's his only short film and I wanted to cover the features first. Anyway, Six Shooter tells the story of a man's train ride home from the hospital after going there to visit his wife, only to find that she'd passed away in the night. And the strange people, mainly this guy, who he meets on the train ride home. Rory Conroy's performance as Kid is just amazing.
Sheep.
To the point where the whole film basically just becomes about him and how quirky and mad he is.
Here, do you want to hear me story about the cow with trapped wind? It's a fucking deadly story.
It really is a fucking deadly story. There's no music running through Six Shooter, but the sound of the train trundling along adds all the ambience you need. There's a really nice moment where Brendan goes up the train seeking booze and has an exchange with the trolley boy, who's played by his son Domhnall, and it's really sweet to see them together. I love the way the story's told. At the start, when he's talking to his wife and he tells her he brought the picture of David, that's the only time David's ever mentioned, yet you can just feel how important he is to them both. Of all Martin's films, Six Shooter is in my eyes the perfect encapsulation of his genius black comedic wit. The ending is... well, if you were to ask me what black comedy was, I would refer you to this short film. And when you'd watched it all the way through and you saw the ending and heard the final line, I would point at the screen and say, that is what black comedy is. My one complaint with Six Shooter, spoiler alert by the way, as this is probably the biggest spoiler in the video, and it is a small complaint, but considering the movie is called Six Shooter, you would have thought he would count the bullets. If you haven't seen Six Shooter, it's available to watch for free on YouTube. I'll post a link in the description. Watch it. It's a 26-minute masterpiece. So I didn't really get round to covering his plays, of which I've only seen 2, and both were exceptional. But regardless, I want to wrap the video up here and say, maybe it's personal bias, as I'm also British-Irish, and having first seen his play The Lonesome West with my parents in Dublin when I was about 11 years old, I've followed every film he's made since. But I think Martin McDonagh is the undisputed king of dark comedy in film and theatre, and broader than that, one of the best directors living. A filmography of 4 fucking phenomenal movies, 1 exceptional short, and no film distinctly worse than the rest is a huge achievement, one which I hope the Academy will finally acknowledge on March 12th this year. There are just so many things Martin does that are brilliant. I like how he always reuses his cast, and not just the stars, but the supporting actors too. You've got Željko Ivanic as the Canadian in Bruges, Paolo in Psychos, and the desk sergeant in Billboards, Abby Cornish as Kaya in Psychopaths and Anne in Billboards, Kerry Condon as Pamela in Billboards and Siobhan in Banshees. Even Gary Lydon as the guard in Six Shooter comes back as Pader in Banshees. I like the dialogue self-interrupt thing he often uses.
We were down the park.
Let me get this right. You were down the park? What's that got to do with fucking anything?
And he writes dialogue that in my opinion rivals that of Tarantino or Kevin Smith.
No, it doesn't. There'll be one guy left with one eye. How's the last blind guy gonna take out the eye of the last guy left, who's still got one eye? All that guy has to do is run away and hide behind a bush. Gandhi was wrong.
I also love his masterful use of foreshadowing in each of his movies.
Fella killed himself, or Ross Muckway. Walked into a lake for himself.
And something he does which I can't really talk about without giving away spoilers, is that each of his stories is in some way circular, or if not necessarily circular, he always manages to subvert your expectations as to the arc the characters will follow. Also, all of his movies are essentially open-ended. They don't just have a climax and then show a shot of the main characters happily at home again chilling. They leave you wondering what did happen to that character or characters. He writes characters so complex that even a character like Dixon, who does something utterly horrific and makes you feel like you can't sympathise with them at all, can almost turn it around later in the movie, leaving you feel like maybe they aren't such a horrible person and could redeem themselves. And the setting for each of these movies is essentially a character in them itself, which is something Martin has said in interviews and has managed to achieve in every one of his feature films. Think about it, In Bruges wouldn't be the movie it was if it weren't in Bruges, and that's true for all of them. Finally, I've praised so many actors for being brilliant in this video, and Ralph Fiennes in particular is brilliant, and Christopher Walken is just fucking amazing. Sam Rockwell in particular is fucking brilliant in this film. Rory Conroy's performance as Kid is just amazing, but I've neglected Brendan Gleeson. Brendan Gleeson is easily one of my favourite actors of all time. He is always brilliant, and gives a fucking astounding performance in each of these movies. So that's it really, and as I end the video, I have just one burning question. Who the fuck is this creepy old lady? Is she the Banshee?
Maybe they're banshees too. I just don't think that they scream to portend death anymore. I think they just sit back, amused, and observe.
I like to think that she wasn't even in the script, but when they turn up on the island, she was just there saying ominous things. So they filmed her and occasionally just dubbed her over to say something about Inisherin to keep it on subject. A subscriber
shall come to a
passionate YouTube channel.
For the month is out. We shall pray to the Lord.
You hit the like button and subscribe for more videos. Going back to Banshees quickly. You know, the more I think about it, the more I think that maybe Colm never liked Padraig, but he tolerated him because he felt like he had to. And now he no longer feels like he can spare the time to do that because he wants to focus on his music. But you can see that he's still a good person and he doesn't want Padraig to suffer. And I think maybe the only reason that he does the things to himself that he does throughout the film is because of the pride that he mentions as one of his sins. It was just a little afterthought I had whilst I was editing, and I thought I'd stick it on the end of the video.